content structure. So let's talk about how we actually put content in the website. There you go. So we talked about yesterday the difference between posts and pages, but let's see how we actually could use them on our website. As I said yesterday, posts are meant to be about timely content. They're organized by date, categories and tags. We'll talk about categories and tags a little more later on. Because it's ordered by date, the advantage is that we see the most recent at the top, and as we create new posts, they're automatically archived and pushed down, but still available to anybody and still searchable. So we will use posts to add some, to announce a new release, for example, and in those posts we can add images, data tables, charts, link to reports, and actually a lot of other things. If we want to add some plugins, we can do quite a lot. And you can see on the right, this is a sample list of updates, it's just random text really, but you can see that there's a date, there's a title, and they are all associated with a category. So the idea is that if we want to find out what are the latest updates on economics, I could have actually add a category CPI, then I'll just filter all the posts by economics, and I see all the latest posts for CPI in this case. So posts are about announcing events or updates or release, or it's really associated to a date, while pages, we use them to create the structure of a site. So you can see on the right, it's a hierarchized list of pages, and I've created a few pages here, and you can see right away the structure of a website, or at least its sitemap. So you can see how you can navigate through the website. So we use page to create the structure of a website. We organize website content in section and pages. What does that mean? Well, statistics will be a section, and pages will be economics, population, social, etc. Page rarely change in terms of URL at least. But its content will change because in a page you will actually integrate the posts, or you can update the content. But the page should be the same because it's the structure of the website. Every time you change an address or URL, what we call a slug, you will see what I'm talking about later on, then the problem is it creates broken links internally, but also externally, meaning Google will still index some pages that do not exist anymore. And every time Google reach 404, which means a page not found, then you lose points and you go down in search results. And so, as I said, the content itself can change the page, but most probably dynamically, because we integrate posts or some tables that we will update, or links to document library. So if we show the list of documents from a folder, then if we add a document in the folder, then it gets automatically added in the page. For instance, if I have a CPI page, and on the page I have first part is a quick description of what CPI is, and then I have a table with the latest results from the latest quarterly report, and then a link to the folder that contains all the CPI. Then if I update those numbers, or if I add a new document, the page is automatically updated, but I don't actually edit it manually. So we talked about posts, pages, and there are also other content types, which are media. That's where you put all your images, videos, and so on. We do use, well, we installed 2 plugins that you may or may not use, but actually the WP file download, which helps us to create a document library, is one of the most used plugins, and it's great to share your files and reports and in PDFs, Excel, or whatever you want. And data tables, this might not be for everybody, but it's a great way to create tables and integrate them in pages. And if you want, you can also create charts from there, from tables. So on the right, you can see a page. This is a sample page with fake numbers, so don't look to them too closely. Demography page. So here it's just an example of what we could do with a table which sums up the latest, well, the evolution of population. And here you can see, or you may be able to see if you have good eyes, that the first row is 1996 and the latest one is 2016. Yesterday we talked about what order we should put them. Top or most recent at the top, or the opposite. The thing is that this way it's easier to edit because we just add a new row at the bottom. It's easier. But it might not be the best way for a user to comprehend, especially because when you list posts, for example, the most recent is at the top. When you list, most recent news, most recent release, it's always the most recent at the top. So here we do the opposite, something maybe we should think about. From this table, I created a chart, and it takes the number from only the last column, the total, because I have the year, male, female, and total. But it splits them. Well, actually, no, it takes columns male and female, male being in blue and female in red, but you can still see the evolution over the years. Charts are always a good way to represent data. Then I added a section where you have the latest news, so it shows up the last 2 posts about demography, in this case. And then I added a folder. I show a list of files contained in one folder from the document library. So this could be a way to create your website. You could create pages and then integrate components in there. And then we have other pages, such as on the right you can see the home page of the training website we created. And you should see the same one on your website, except for Emily and Anna. So here I have homepage. It's just another page, but meaning we can put the same contents we want, the same way we would do in any other page. And here what we added is the key indicators, then a list of latest posts, and a link to pub.js for those of us who have it. And then we could add some text if you wanted to highlight something or talk about the next census or whatever. So the layout, as you can see, is pretty simple, but it gets straight to the point. We highlight everything what we do, the latest release mostly, and the key indicators. We have links. So, but again, this is just one template. So the idea behind the document library is that we would have one page that has it all, because some people like to find the documents just by browsing folders, and then on a page such as, for instance, let me check. In CPI, no, I didn't add it. Well, anyway. So as you can see on the website that the template we created a homepage, statistics pages, census and survey, document library, and about us. This is probably the least you should do, because we all want to disseminate our statistics. We probably want to talk about our census, and we definitely want to share our reports. And we all want to talk about us, so we have an About Us page, and that's where you would put the contact information, description of how your office work, and anything you want, really. Now, taxonomy. Taxonomy is something that is actually really important for SEO, and also to optimize the search against inside your website. Because in taxonomy there are two things. There are categories and posts. Actually you could even have more, but that's already way enough. We use categories to classify posts by topic. And in our case, we would use the categories we will create a category for each statistics topic. So you can see on the right, apart from census, if you start at economy, then under economy I have balance of payments, CPI, trade, and so on, and then I have population, and I could have demography, births and deaths, etc. When you create a post, you will associate it with one or more categories. So when you go to a category page, you will see all the posts for that related to that category. So basically, you group your posts by category. That's the purpose of categories. Now to define categories, it's always a bit different from one country to another, or from one website to another. But even for us, even though we all talk about statistics, we may have different ways to organize our statistics topics. And it's always a bit difficult. I mean, there's some countries that will focus more on some subjects than others. Yesterday we talked about Wallis, for example, who said the building, les bâtiments, the building statistics. So same as CPI, but for buildings. Sorry. Anyway, this is an important topic for Wallis. While in your own country it might be something different. So this is something that we have to spend some time to make sure that we create the right categories, we organize them well. But don't worry too much, we can always add a new one or move things around, at least at the beginning. The more the more your website is online, the longer your website is online, the more difficult it is to change them, because again you can create broken links. Tags is a bit different than categories. First of all, they are not organized in the same way, they are not hierarchized. It's just a flat list of keywords, and but this time you don't really have to think about them too much or too hard at the beginning. You can create new ones as you create posts. And it really talks about the actual content that you write on your posts or on your pages, actually. So for example, a post about the latest high census report will be associated with the census category, because you want it to appear in the census page. But then you will tag highest household income, expenditure, anything that you could think about that you believe your user would look for or would search for. So if you know that your user are always looking for building, for instance, maybe you don't have a real category, but you could tag anything related to that subject with a keyword or tag building. And it's quite some work to deal with tags, because once you start tagging, you have to make sure that you write them the same way. I mean, you should not misspell them or spell them differently, because otherwise you will end up with thousands of tags, and when someone searches for one, he will not find the other one just because you misspelled it. So that's the categories, you create them before, and you select from a list, right? While tags, you will write them as you create a post. So it's a bit more, it's easier to make mistakes. So you have to be careful about how you spell words and when using tags. But it's still very powerful, and it's still very helpful for SEO. So as I said, it's better to plan categories from the start, while with tags you can add them after, as you go. Let's see how we actually create tags. So first of all, we need to log in. The tags are used by posts, so they are under posts, and then you go to categories. So for those of you who are using the same template that I do, you will see the same list. You have a list of categories here. You have a description which we don't actually use. The slug is the part of the URL or the address to access the category page. So if I go, for instance, to CPI and I click on View, and it says CPI. Let me check. Let me go back. Hang on. Here the slug for consumer price index is CPI. So if I go to the CPI page, you will see, no, one click, sorry, CPI. You will see that here it says CPI. That's what the slug is. And again, the whole URL here is quite important for SEO because you have keywords there. We have economy and we have statistics and we have CPI. All those words, all those keywords are picked up by Google. So it's quite important to make sure that they make sense. On this list, you also have a count here. It's the number of posts that have been linked to those categories. So it helps you find out which one you are actually using. Maybe someone's, after a while you will see that, and I have never posted anything under agriculture, maybe I don't need it. To create a category, it's really easy. Let's create one. What can we create? Can someone give me an example?
Building statistics.
Building, there you go. Building. I think it's building price index, isn't it? Anastasia, c'est l'index du prix des bâtiments. Hein? Indice du bâtiment. C'est comme un indice des prix.
Oui.
C'est ça. So let's do that. Building price index. So building price index. If we leave it empty, if we leave the slug empty, it will automatically be filled by building price index. We have no space there, so we'll add dashes, but we don't have to worry about it. This comes under economy, so we make sure we select the parent category economy. And as I said, we don't actually use description. You can fill it, but and then click on add, and there you go, building price index. As you can see, the slug becomes lowercase and dashes are added, and it's automatically available for any post we create. Actually, there's another way to create categories. If you create a post and you go here, that's where you select a category, right? You can see you have a list, but you can also create a new one here. I will recommend thinking ahead and create categories before you start posting. But you know that if you forgot one, you can always add it from here. You don't have to go back to the categories pages and etc. Billy will talk more about this, I'm sure, after that. Now, hang on a sec, just checking something. Yeah. All right, so those are categories. How to create tags. I will not go too far in this because we will talk more about this later on. You can create tags beforehand by just saying under posts you have categories and you have tags, and here you have the list of the tags you use. This is quite useful again because you have the list of all the tags that you will create and a count of posts that are associated with it. And you can create them before, same way we do create categories. This time, as I said, it's all flat, so you don't have parent categories. It's just, or parent tags, sorry. So it's just a flat list of tags. You will see that this can grow very quickly. So again, make sure that you don't use too many tags, or make sure they are spelled the same way. Now, content navigation. Well, we talked about tags and categories and pages. And I said before that we can use pages to create the structure of a website. And the idea that I gave before is that I create a page, and in that page I include the list of posts from a category. The problem by doing this is that I will have to create the same list of pages for statistics topics, for instance. I will create an economy page, a CPI page, a trade page, and etc. And I edit the CPI page, and in there I will want to list the posts from category CPI. So I will create a list of pages, and I will create a list of categories. So basically I do the same thing twice. Do I make sense when I say that? It's double the work. I create same structure in pages than in categories. Well, we might not want to do that. There's another way to deal with categories. It's by using pages, category pages. So before I go into this, so when I'm in list of categories here, if I go to the CPI, this is a category page. The category page lists all the posts related to that category. All right? Now we wanted to add something, because if I go to education, I probably have nothing. The category page lists all the posts, but it's probably not enough for us, because we want also to have a bit more information about this topic. That's why here I have this first post here, which is with a light gray background, is a special post that is tagged with the same category CPI, but it's marked as sticky. So if I edit this post, it's just another post, but I have an option here to say we stick this post at the top of the blog, which means it's always at the top of the page. And in our template, we make it look a bit special, because if you look closely, usually I show a date and a category, but actually here there's no date, because this is supposed to be an introduction to the category. But in that post, I could add a link to reports, a link to the digital library. I could add a table that I want to update most of the time. Defeats a bit the purpose of a post. It's a special post. It's used to describe the category. But instead of creating a page and a category, I just need to create a category and one post. And it's easier to maintain in the long run. So that's another way of creating statistic pages. The problem with that is that we can use this technique with only one set of categories. If you look at the census pages, those are actually pages because I cannot mix categories pages in more than one submenu. That said, we probably have a lot of statistics pages and only a few census pages. So it makes sense to create statistics as categories, and then we double the work only for census pages. So we create 3 or maybe one or two census pages, and we associate with the categories of the same name. So we talked about the content and how to structure a content. Now let's see, and we already talked a bit about the navigation, because we now know how to create statistics pages, topics and pages. But now we want our users to be able to navigate through our website in a usable way, user-friendly way. So there are quite some standards in when we create a website. We always have a main navigation, which is usually at the top, could be on the left. Main navigation, which lists the top pages, meaning top as in top of the hierarchy. And then we can have a footer menu here. And here we have actually the list of categories. So instead of having to click and expand a drop-down menu, which is not always easy to use, we have a full list of categories here, which works if we don't have thousands of categories, but we probably won't. And also it's good when someone is browsing a page. Here I'm scrolling down, and then I reach the bottom, and maybe I can see from this menu that there's another topic that is quite linked or interesting to me. So basically here we have 2 price index, and we can easily move from one to another. So the footer menu is actually quite interesting in for some users. So we have main navigation, footer menu, and then we already talked about that before, the sidebar, which can have a secondary menu. Here I'm in a statistics page or category, so we'll have the list of all the categories, all of the statistics topics, so I can easily move from one to another. And if I go to the census page, then the menu changes because we are under census section now, and so on. Sometimes we don't need a sidebar, home page for instance, because it's quite standalone, so we will hide the sidebar. Another feature which is quite common on most websites is, especially when we work with WordPress, is having the list of recent posts always on the sidebar. So at any point I can go from one to another and browse the latest one. If I haven't been to a website for a while, for instance, I can click along as I read the posts, the latest posts. All right, so we see how it works. Now, well, we now know how it works in Ferrari. Now let's see how we create them. As I mentioned that before, the DV theme already creates navigation automatically if you let him do it so. So every time I create a page, it will be added at the main navigation menu here. And every time I create a category, it will also be added here, which is actually quite messy. Maybe let me demonstrate how it actually works. All right. Here I have a blank website. There's actually nothing there. And there's no menu. All right. All right. This is what we get when we first create a website from zero. We have a sample page, famous or infamous hello world message, and a non-categorized category. So let me show you. Oh, sorry. Here I have one default category, and I have one default page. If I create a new page, so I'll go very quick because this is not the purpose of this presentation. So I created a new page. Then DV adds it directly in the navigation. You see? And if I create a new category, maybe so, well, then it's added in the main navigation here, right? And trust me, we don't want that, because every time you create a category, imagine if you have 20 categories, how the menu will become. So this is the default. We can select the categories we want to show or we want to hide by going to DV options here. Navigation, when we're on page, it lists again all the pages. If you click on it, it becomes disabled. So when it's hidden, let me demonstrate. I've hidden the second page. And now it's not there anymore. Same with categories. If I click on categories here, I don't want to have the uncategorized category to be shown. Save. And it's hidden. The problem is that, first of all, we mix categories and pages. Also, every time we create a category, we have to go back to the DV settings and hide them one by one. So, well, you can go for that, but there's another way to deal with navigation. Instead of dealing with this, and I'm going to show them all because it will be a better demonstration. So now I have them all again. So I have a mix of pages and categories in my menu. Now I'm going to go to Appearance and Menu. So, by default, there's no menu defined. So let's create one. We have menus and we have locations. Locations are defined by the theme we use. So in our case, the DV theme has 3 menus. Primary is at the top, is this one. Secondary will be another one below the first one. So it's not the one on the sidebar. The one defined by DV is just below the primary menu. And the photo menu is the one that we have in the previous example. It's this one. That's the footer menu. The footer menu, yes. So here, you can create many menus and then you associate a menu with a location. By default, we already have a menu here, but it's blank. So these nested pages, we'll call it just main pages or main menu. Let's see main menu. We can rename the menus as we want. And I will add there my 2 pages to that menu. There you go. Once it's there, I can reorder them. I can make one under the other one just by dragging and drop them, and I can also rename them. When we rename the menu item here, we change the name of the menu, but we don't change the name of the page. You will see what I'm talking about. So here, the sample page, I rename the menu item as first page. So I have first and second. Now I want this menu to show at the top of the as the main navigation menu. So here, so far I've not associated with this menu with the location. So let's do this. There's 2 ways. Either I go to the manage location as I did before and I select it here, or from here, I can say, well, I want to display this menu on primary menu. And then I save. And now, so before we had the list of pages and categories. And now I have only the list of pages. Once we started to define our menu, through our menu navigations through this appearance menu page, then it overrides everything that DV used to do automatically. So we have 2 ways to create navigations with DV.